time, because it had the warmth of the animals. And certainly the animals too sensed who was being born there. A child into the darkness, not only an external night, but into the darkness called human beings. People without love, people without the love for God and for their neighbor, people who closed their doors to the Great Spirit that was born in a baby. All this and much more Mary and Joseph had to submit to. You parents to be, whether Catholic or evangelical, if you put yourselves into this situation in your thoughts, then you will become aware of the fact that this elaborate show at Christmas time is a scorn and mockery of Mary and Joseph, and a scorn and mockery of the Great Spirit who sent His Son. And in the end, it is a scorn and mockery of Jesus the Christ, who brought us redemption. You parents to be, have you ever thought of where Mary and Joseph got their food? They also had hunger. They were human beings. Their physical bodies also needed food. Who brought them food? Perhaps the woman did it surreptitiously. The woman who had shown them the way to the animals in her stable. The child was radiant in the manger, and Mary fed it at her breast. And the earthly father, Joseph, thanked the Great Spirit for the grace and for the love that enabled Jesus, the baby, to at least have a roof over its head. And how is it now, 2,000 years later? Who is it that brought this Christmas butchery, I want to call it this, into the world? Who brought such suffering to the animals into this world? Who brought these pagan cults into this world? Who caused the sorcery of celebrating a Christmas in which Jesus, the Christ, is scorned and mocked? And the people who call themselves Catholic or evangelical or whatever other faith they may be still keep on worshiping a wax figurine instead of realizing that the Great Spirit on the cross at Calvary, at Golgotha, brought redemption to the people, the light and the way into the Father house.
Meine Brüder und Schwestern im Geiste des Christus.
My brothers and sisters in the Spirit of Christ, how can you celebrate Christmas in this state of human, really all too human tradition? How can you give way to a pagan cult if you call yourselves Christian? Even if your churches are pagan, you do not need at all to become pagans who worship this cult.
Dear listeners, again, you are witnessing how the great prophetess and spiritual ambassador of God, Gabriella, whom God calls his spiritual ambassador and prophetess, has given witness during this time for Christ, for Jesus, but also for Mary and Joseph, his parents in the flesh. And how is it today, dear listeners? Scorn and mockery of Mary and Joseph back then, and today with the all-too-human carryings on at Christmas. But scorn and mockery of the original Christians in universal life as well today, because they follow solely the Christ of God. Scorn and mockery over and over again over thousands of years of all the prophets, of all the wise men and women, through whom, dear listeners, always and over again it was the caste of priests who persecuted, ridiculed, and mocked the wise and just men and women. Just as Mary and Joseph were scorned and mocked back then, just as John the Baptist was beheaded, just as the Great Spirit, Christ, the co-regent of the heavens, was ignominiously nailed to the cross, are the original Christians in universal life today, but above all the great woman, the spiritual ambassador and prophetess of God for this time, drawn and quartered through the press, scorned and mocked by the caste of priests, by the Pope, by the cardinals, by all the sanctimonious Christians who take the word Christian into their mouths, but the deeds show they follow someone else.
Wie wäre es nach 2000 Jahren,
What would happen now, 2,000 years later, if Mary and Joseph, two simple people, were to knock on the gates of the rich and ask for shelter? What would happen? Would they take in a heavily pregnant woman whom they can tell is about to give birth? Christian said that 30,000 children die on a daily basis